Yo, what's up everybody? It's me, Thatweep here, back with part 6 for What If Asta was in Fairytail. If you guys have not seen the previous parts, make sure up here top upper right hand corner, and you will find a place I've kindly linked for you, so you can get that, catch up, and get back here in the series. What are you waiting for? Get going. Anyway, for those of you who stayed, because you're cool and you've watched the series already, thank you. But we're going to be getting into the Phantom Lord arc of Fairytail, something that a lot of you guys are looking forward to because of the introduction of Black Steel Gajeel. Anyway, enough waiting, let's just get right into the story for What If Asta was in Fairytail. Asta had completed the mission of destroying Deliora. Yet, since the last time we were here, nothing's changed for the villagers. They were still cursed. This would be when Urza would intervene, telling Asta to give her his sword. But it'll drain your magic. I don't need to equip her anything for this, she'd say. She'd also tell Natsu she needs his help, as she then positioned the sword like a javelin, telling Natsu to fire when she says. She would then throw Asta's sword filled with anti-magic as hard as she can, telling Natsu to hit it now, as with Natsu's combined power, she would destroy the moon, as the villagers had asked her to do. Well, just like the original, it worked. The sword would hit the barrier, which had been covering the island from the effect of the moon drip ceremony, and would destroy the essence of it, using Asta's anti-magic. The sword would fall back to the ground, Asta quickly catching it and putting it back in his grimoire. Natsu thinking that was awesome. As Urza says, it was really no big deal. The villagers thanking them for completing the mission. When they would begin to find out that what was actually going on was that they were demons. It was an island of demons, that their memories had been wiped, and the real curse was that they had been turned to humans during the day. Everyone had one last toast and a feast, as the Galuna Island mission would come to an end, with Team Natsu of Gray, Natsu, Urza, Lucy, and Asta, including Happy, would then head back to Fairytail. "Man, I'm stuffed," Natsu would say. Asta would turn to him saying that he totally ate more than Natsu did. The two of them headbutting each other, saying that they're not even full yet, really asking if he's ready to go another round, shorty. Asta would throw punches at Natsu, who would just throw them back as the two are brawling in the street. Gray would tell him to knock it off, Urza saying the same thing, as they would keep walking towards Fairytail's guild. Natsu would have his eyes closed, walking backwards with his arms behind his head, as suddenly we hear Asta drop his sword. Urza's mouth would be hanging open, her eyes turned white. Lucy would be shocked, and Gray would just be silent, having no idea what to say. "Huh? What's wrong, guys?" Natsu would say, as he turns around. Turning around ready to walk into the guild hall, Natsu's heart would stop. The entire guild hall would be completely almost destroyed. Hundreds of iron pillars piercing into the building, as what had been their guild hall until before they had left was now in ruins. "Who did this?" Natsu would say. Asta would be clenching his fists, gritting his teeth. "Where's Gramps? Where's everyone else?" Asta would say. Natsu would turn, realizing, "Oh my god," as they would then run to the building, Asta punching the door open, as he and Natsu would then run into the room trying to look for anyone. Urza would tell him to get out of there, it could be dangerous, saying that the building could collapse, the two not seeing anyone in sight. As the three would be trying to get Asta and Natsu to come out of the building, we'd hear Makurov's voice, and some of the other guild members would be with him, including Mira and Elfman. "Come on, get out of there," Makarov would say. "That building's practically destroyed by now. Only the basement survived, if anything." "Gramps, you're okay?" They'd fall over, now being relieved. "Did anyone else get hurt? What happened?" Natsu would ask. Mirajin would tell them that the team from Phantom Lord's Guild was behind the attack. During the time, the guild members had all hid in the basement, with Makarov welcoming Team Natsu back like nothing had happened. Makarov would then turn, reminding the group that they had gone on an S-class mission without his permission, before he takes a huge fist and pounds it on Asta's head, him falling over as he turns to Gray and Natsu, who would start to turn sweating. With both Asta and Natsu unable to convince Makarov to fight back whoever did this, everyone would go their separate ways. Lucy going home, only to find the rest of the team waiting in her apartment. Urza, Gray, Natsu, and Asta, and Happy. Urza would say that since Phantom Lord attack, they may know where each of the guild members live, so it would be better if they all stay together. Lucy wondering why it's always her house. While staying over, they discuss about Phantom Lord and their long-term rivalry with Fairytail, being equal in power over the past couple of years, as both of the guild masters belong to the 10 wizard saints. These 10 wizard saints being the strongest wizards and mages on the entire continent. Urza would go on to say that the guild Phantom Lord has the elite Element 4 team, who would be on par with Fairytail's 4 S-class mages in terms of strength. And finally, Gajeel Red Fox, considered the guild's strongest member, a dragon slayer just like Natsu, and his element being iron. We cut away from the group now at Phantom Lord's base, seeing Gajeel himself, eating different pieces of metal, chewing on them, telling his guildmaster that he's ready for another attack on the fairies, having beaten down Team Shadowgear and crucified them on a huge tree in the park. Meanwhile, back in Magnolia, the people in town and Fairytail mages would have witnessed this, seeing what happened. Makarov would arrive on the scene, as well as everyone else in Fairytail, as we see Jet, Droy, and Levy now hoisted against a tree, crucified with iron bars holding them straight up. Makarov would arrive on the scene. Seeing this, he would go completely serious. Phantom Lord has gone too far this time, as he crushes his staff underneath his fist, his knuckles going white. Makarov turns and officially declares war between the guilds, saying they're going to crush Phantom Lord. Lucy would remain back at the guild watching over Levy, Jet, and Droy, the Shadowgear team, now recovering. Meanwhile, the rest of Fairytail goes to attack Phantom Lord's base in retaliation. The Element 4 and Gajeel, however, would be nowhere to be seen, granting the upper hand to the retaliation force from Fairytail. Asta would be pissed, as he tells Natsu to break down the door with his flames. Natsu tells him to not tell him what to do, as he then burns down the front of the building. Intruders! The Phantom Lord, fodder, would then begin to attack Fairytail's members, trying to retaliate. As they send blasts of magic towards the guild, Asta would charge in front as he slashes with his blade, dispelling all the magic, saying he's not going to let them hurt his friends ever again. Asta using a great black divider, his sword growing huge as he slams it into the members in front, destroying some of the fodder. With that, Fairytail would charge, screaming a war cry, as Fairytail begins to decimate the other guild. Soon enough, Phantom Lord's Dragon Slayer would show up, wondering if he should join the fray. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Lucy, who would have left the guild walking through town, would suddenly be reached by 2 members of the Elemental 4, Juvia Lockster and Soul. She would be kidnapped by the 2 and unconscious. Back at Phantom Lord's base, where the battle rages on, Gajeel decides to join in as he starts by fighting Elfman. However, this brief confrontation would then be interrupted by Natsu, who says he'll take Gajeel on himself. In the meantime, Makarov and Asta have been clearing the second floor of the building, ready to confront Jose. Makarov telling Asta to stay behind him and cover him from any magic attacks. However, Phantom Lord's master would then be revealed to use thought projection, as the Guildmaster Jose would reveal to Makarov and Asta that they have captured Lucy. Trying to catch Makarov off guard, one of the Element 4's Arya and his Metsu spell, a spell that can drain people of all of their magic to the point of death. He would try to attack Makarov, knowing that this spell was more effective the more power that the person has. However, Asta would see this, throwing the blade in front of Makarov as he jumps in front of the spell, which would do nothing, because Asta has no magic. Asta would look up with now Arya being shocked. Not even a little blood? No physical damage? What? Every living thing has some magic in them. Some, even a little bit. And this is supposed to be a wizard. He's part of Fairytail. I see it right there. How is... Before he could escape, Arya would then be taken by Makarov, saying that was a pretty cheeky spell of his. Makarov would thank Asta for watching his back, saying that they have to go and find Lucy, as he then throws Arya against the wall, knocking him out, As Fairytail retreats, now knowing that Lucy's being held captive in Phantom Lord's headquarters, Asta would tell Natsu as he immediately heads to Lucy's location. Now, at Lucy's dismay, she'd be told by Jose that the main reason for the attack on Fairytail was her, as her kidnapping had been ordered by her father, the influential Heartfielia family, who decided he wants to have her back. Lucy would get a good dick kick in just like the original. Lucy would climb out of the cell as she reaches the top of the tower. Seeing the ground, she'd turn as Jose says that if she does that, she'll fall to her death. Lucy would turn, jumping off from the top of the tower, believing as she closes her eyes that Natsu will save her. Which is true, as the fiery dragon slayer catches her just before she hits the ground. The two of them now rolling into the dirt, as Natsu says they have to get out of there, using flames on his feet as he blasts out, enraging Jose, saying he's going to make her pay, as he holds his injured cock. Anyway, back at the Fairytail Guild, everyone is ready for the possible confrontation of Phantom Lord versus Fairytail once again, now deciding what they're going to do. Lucy, now knowing she's responsible for what happened, would be comforted by her comrades, saying that they won't be letting her get taken. If they want one of them, then they're after all of them. Lucy would feel a fluttering in her heart as she thanks all of her friends, feeling like this guild really looks out for her. This being one of the first moments that makes everyone, us the viewers, even fall in love with Fairytail. While looking for help from the guild's S-class mages, Kana will be unsuccessful in finding out Mystigan and Loxus' locations using communication lacrimas. And Loxus had just plain out refusing to help his guildmates, laughing that off, saying that they can't even take down Phantom Lord, then the guild's really gone that weak. All of a sudden, it would all go quiet, as Phantom Lord's headquarters would be seen moving towards Magnolia, in the direction of Fairytail on huge mechanical legs. Once they're near enough, Jose, now still pissed off at Lucy, orders the firing of the magical convergent cannon, Jupiter. Urza would be prepared to activate and use her adamantine armor to stop the blast. As she's about to tank the hit, Asta would tag her on the shoulder, saying that he can deal with this easily. Asta would turn to Urza, smiling, saying, "This is the thing he's best at after all." Urza would deactivate her requip, telling him to show her what he can do. "Ha! Makarov, you really think that shrimp can block the magical power of Jupiter? You've gone senile in your age," he'd say, as he blasts the attack. The blast about to destroy all of Magnolia, if not all of Fairytail. Asta would then activate the anti-magic from his body, adding it into his sword as he makes it grow larger and larger using the Black Divider's spell. He would turn the blade, like a baseball bat, towards the flat as the blast is almost there. Moving faster and faster, Asta would swing the sword. A resounding, almost a bell-like hit would toll as the sword gets hit by the blast of Jupiter and reflects the attack. 3 of the legs of the entire base of Phantom Lord would be eviscerated, being completely destroyed by their own cannon, as everyone in Fairytail would cheer, Asta having successfully deflected the power of a Jupiter cannon with his anti-magic. Jose would be furious, demanding that Lucy Heartfielia is handed over or he'll sick all of the Element 4 and his Dragon Slayer on the city. Asta would scream out in his loud voice that if that idiot tries to fire a cannon off again, this time he'll reflect directly back at him. Jose going red in the face, saying that little trick of yours is nothing. Makarov would tell Asta, Urza, Natsu, and Gray to go and attack the base, saying that he can handle it here. Using his powers, since this time he wasn't drained of his magic, he would help battle against the shades Jose had summoned. Not so enough happy would then fly off towards the base, him telling Asta to catch up with Gray. Gray having to freeze the ocean in order to actually get across. Their top objectives being to destroy Jupiter, as well as to fend off the Element 4. Asta tells Makarov he wants to stay with him, saying that in case the group can't destroy Jupiter in time before another blast, only he and Urza can actually deflect the attack, or at least tank it, saying that if he's not there, what's gonna happen? Makarov would give him a thumbs up, telling Asta he wants him to go in there. He wants him to prove himself for him. Asta would trust his grandfather, as he then heads off with Gray and Natsu, now running towards the base, Gray creating a floor of ice using his Ice Maker magic. Natsu would get inside the base first, realizing that he couldn't destroy it from the outside, and they lead into the chamber, finding a large lacrima that is likely powering up the weapon. However, as Natsu tries to destroy it, he would then run to Totemaru, a member of the Element 4 who has the ability to control all fire in the area, including Natsu's. The fight would quickly reach a stalemate, considering that since he can control Natsu's flames and Natsu can eat Totemaru's flames, his flames himself can't even reach Totemaru. So, Natsu had tricked him by spitting on him instead of using his fire dragon roar, Totemaru getting pissed off and deciding to use his orange fire. The fire smelling and tasting terrible, which would affect Natsu greatly, since he has such a high sense of smell. Afterwards, Totemaru pulled out a sword to attack Natsu, since this didn't work either, and Natsu manages to dodge, getting a lucky shot in by making his flame big enough to attack Totemaru, even if it was being controlled. The Fire Dragon Slayer subsequently managed to gain full control over his flames, rendering Totemaru unable to control his flames, now defeating one of the Element 4, as Natsu would then destroy the Lacrima, preventing Jupiter from being able to fire. Just as Natsu had been starting to gain the upper hand, Yose decides to use his strongest weapon, turning the guild's building into a huge robot, a giant mage, the Super Mage Giant Phantom Mark II, which gives Natsu motion sickness due to the building beginning to move. As he falls over, Totemaru would take advantage of this as he tries to finish Natsu off with a rainbow fire. As the rainbow fire is deactivated as he ends up frozen in a block of ice, as Gray and Asta show up just in a nick of time, defeating him quickly as he's now frozen and captured by Gray. The giant mech would begin to cast the spell Abyss Break, this now becoming a bigger threat than the Jupiter cannon. The members who had infiltrated the robot now begin to search around for a way to stop it, this being far stronger than Jupiter, and Asta's way too far away to be able to get there in time to use his anti-magic, even if Happy had gone with him and flown him over, but he couldn't even touch Asta because Happy's flight would be deactivated then. Mirage would try and convince them that she's Lucy, using her transform spell, who would be shocked to hear that Elfman is among them, worried about him. To end the suffering of her guildmates, she subsequently shows herself to Yose, claiming to be Lucy, willing to surrender and turn herself in. Yose, however, would easily see through this deception and captures her in the hand of the robot. Meanwhile, Elfman would run into Sol, the Earth user of the Element 4. Mirage would be caught by the robot's hand within its clutches, as Yose claims that he's going to crush her under his fist. Meanwhile, inside the robot, Elfman and Sol would be fighting each other. During the battle, Sol continues to bring up Lizana, asking how his younger sister's doing, who he had accidentally killed during a failed full-body takeover spell. This was an attempt to weaken his mind, of course. Despite Elfman's effort to attack Sol, he would still be overwhelmed and decides he has no choice but to try a full-body takeover once again. However, he'd fail when he remembers Lizana's face, as he takes a massive attack, sending him flying through a brick wall, taking damage. There, outside, he would see Mirajane had been captured by the gigantic robot and is on the verge of being crushed. This gives Elfman the resolve he needed to succeed in his power, as he finally activates his full Beast Soul takeover, proceeding to quickly defeat Sol with a barrage of strong punches and kicks. Elfman would then run back towards Mirajane and save her from the robot, ripping the claw apart, revealing that he actually had kept his senses, and he didn't lose control this time. Regardless, Mirajane doesn't blame him for what happened, reminding him that they'd both promised to continue to live for Lizana's sake. Something that makes Elfman cry in joy. Mirajane would notice that the spell of Abyss Break was now moving at a much slower pace, realizing that the spell is actually powered by the Element 4, saying that the spell would actually be stopped if the remaining members are defeated. Fairytail's members would continue to fight, with there only being one member of the Elite Four left, being Juvia, since Arya, the top member of the Elite Four, had already been defeated by Makarov when Asta had helped take him out back at the first attack on Phantom Lord's base. Now it's ice versus water, Gray versus Juvia. Gray outside on top of the road will be wondering why it's raining, where he meets Juvia, a member of the Element 4, using water. Gray then would tell her that even though she's a girl, he's not going to go easy on her. This would make Juvia turn around saying she already lost the fight, greatly surprising Gray, wondering what was going on. Juvia starts to grow more fond of him at an impressive rate. Gray would then ask her to stop the robotic mage, saying that unless he beats her, I don't know if there's any other way to slow it down or stop it. She decides that she's going to make Gray hers, and subsequently surrounds Gray with her water lock, accidentally opening the wound he got from Leon Vastia. As a panicked Juvia would then immediately try to release him, Gray would freeze himself by freezing the water, something which strikes Juvia. Gray, now shirtless, attacks her with Ice Make Lance, but is surprised to find out that Juvia's body is made entirely of water and is capable of reforming. Briefly after this point, Juvia proceeds to say that he should just hand Lucy over, the latter replying he won't give up no matter what. Something which makes Juvia feel upset, beginning to see Lucy as a love rival, thinking that she must be the one who has Gray's heart. Never going to forgive her, she'd say as she bites on a handkerchief. Much to Gray's dismay, this makes Juvia's water attacks boil hot, counteracting Gray's ice. Gray would make the comment like he did in the original that all this rain was kind of gloomy, which made Juvia remember her sad childhood, insert Naruto Sadness and Sorrow backstory music, making Juvia fight even harder. Gray using an Ice Make Geyser would defeat her, freezing the rain in the sky itself. This would be allowing Juvia to see for the first time the sky, as she cries in joy saying it's beautiful. Gray would call her a weirdo, as he asks if she wants to continue the fight, Juvia just fainting. And with this, all 4 of the Element 4 be defeated, causing the Abyss Break to end. Now it's time for the battle everyone's been waiting for. Dragon versus Dragon, Natsu versus Gajeel. With all the Element 4 defeated, Abyss Break had been stopped, and the gigantic robot mage collapses, much to Fairytail's enthusiasm and joy. Now, laughing and jumping, excited they had finally defeated the huge mech. Gajeel would be carrying a beaten Lucy, who he had taken out from Fairytail's hideout after defeating Redis, as discovered by Loki. A pleased Yose would announce that the loudspeaker that Fanlord succeeded in recapturing Lucy, forcing the girl to scream in pain into the microphone, proving that it's her, saying there's nothing left to do but to eliminate all of them. He would add a huge boost of power to his shades, as Makarov would also begin to get serious, using the power of fairy law, destroying all the shades. As Makarov would then go to confront Yose. Before Makarov can get there, Jose insists they must take out the rest of the intruders inside of the Phantom Lord base. He would quickly take out Gray, Elfman, and Mirajane before he decides to fight Urza, acknowledging her strength. As Urza's about to get attacked, Natsu and Asta would come in, Natsu blasting a fire dragon's roar, and Asta subsequently using a black divider, slashing with his sword to reflect Asta's flames from the other side, which Yose had originally dodged. The flames now knocking to Jose, sending him back, as he has some burn marks on him a little bit. This would make him quite impressed actually, saying that he's actually pretty good, but he's still nothing compared to his Dragon Slayer. As the fight with the Guildmaster of Famlor is about to begin, Asta would scream for Natsu to go and save Lucy, saying that he and Urza can handle this. Asta would turn, gulping as he then agrees, saying he'll go fight off Gajeel, as he bursts into the room. As Yose's about to attack Natsu, not allowing him to leave, Asta would block the strike, telling Urza and asking if she's ready, gritting his teeth. Ready as I'll ever be, she'll say, now equipping her adamantine armor, as the two then get into their sword-taking positions, ready to fight. It would be here that we have a small flashback of Urza sparring with Asta as they were younger children, with Asta being super impressed with Urza's skills, working out even more and training even harder. Urza herself could respect Asta, seeing how hard he tried of everything, and would actually teach him a few things about swords. Having the two train with each other, they would have built a strong bond of trust, as Asta and Urza then scream out, ready to attack Jose. Asta would cover Urza mainly going for strikes since she was faster. However, Asta had greater magic defense. Jose would actually be impressed by this combination team, using Asta as a defensive unit since he can tank more damage and nullify magic, and Urza as their attacker since she's faster and can hit heavier strikes. Using their magic in this way, Asta and Urza would actually gradually begin to whittle him down, waiting for Makarov to arrive, as the two try to defeat the Guildmaster. Back in the other room, Gajeel had been spending his time practicing throwing knives at Lucy, who almost hit her a few times. Lucy would then say and tell him to actually hit her, to kill her, saying that if he does, then she'd scream, all of Fairytail would avenge her and make Famlord pay. Gajeel would grit his teeth, saying that those useless fairies could never do anything like that, as he throws one last blade at her. Just as this blade's about to hit her in the head, Natsu would come charging through the wall as he bites the knife out of midair, turning, chomping down his teeth as he shatters the knife in his fangs, saying that he doesn't understand why Gajeel eats this stuff so much. Flames taste way better anyway. Natsu would spit out the shattered blade as he has his fist covered in flames, melting the iron that had been holding Lucy captive. Setting Lucy free of her restraints, Natsu would punch his fist into his other hand, saying that he's gonna take Gajeel down. As the two dragon slayers get into their brawling stances, charging forward as the two dragons are about to fight. If you guys want to see the next part for What If Asta was in Fairytail, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below your thought, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this from me, and I'll see all you guys in the next one. Bye now.